Okay, I think it's working now. You can see the Starlink. You can see my giant cables. I'm like on belay right now, I guess. Boop. You can see that too. It's my anchor. It's chilling. And I'm gonna see if I can look at my live chat from YouTube Studio. The answer is no. Okay. But I'm gonna check out the bottom of this climb. I've got 2 ropes here. So one of the ropes is, I don't even know who's in the chat. One of the ropes is going to the top, and this one's gonna go to the bottom. It's called a multi-pitch. Basically, you need more than one length of rope. So I'm gonna go down to, yeah, can you see me, Noodles? Jesus Christ. I think you can pan the camera. Yeah, I think it should be in the 360 mode. I think so. Yeah. You should be able to pan the camera yourself. I can switch it to be looking at me. I'll switch it. Okay. Now it's switched to me by default. I'm gonna try to get it. To be less shaky. Okay, strapped in. And I've got a long Ethernet cable. And this thing. I go off hands free, so now I need to have my hand on this the whole time. And let's see if this works. Check the chat. You can pan it, yeah, okay. Alright. So Noodles is in the chat. My most supportive friend, as long as it's after work hours. I don't really know where I'm going on this climb, but I'm hoping to be able to get to the ground. Alright. Alright, let's bring the rope. I had this set up yesterday where I threw the rope down. Throwing the rope is the most fun part. Or I had this set up earlier today. But with this, I was like maybe just gonna let the rope come along with me. But there's some rocks in the way that are getting stuck. When you're on like a big overhanging climb, this doesn't really happen. But I'm on kind of an easy climb. Sorry for moving the camera so much. So I'm taking this rope. I'm just gonna throw it off the edge. That way it doesn't stuck. Once again, sorry for the camera being all over the place. It'll be better in a minute. Alright, I wonder if this will happen with the Ethernet cable too. We'll find out. So far, so good on the Ethernet cable. It's kind of hilarious. Let me go tie this off to go hands-free. Basically, when you're climbing, anytime you like take your hands off of your protection, you want to like tie a knot. So that's what I'm doing here. You can kind of see in the front. I can move this up a bit. So I'm tying a knot just so that I'm like definitely can't fall. Not that I think I could fall anyways here. It's like very chill, but yeah, the Ethernet cable is stuck. Oh yeah, it's kind of wedged in there. Good job, Ethernet cable. Okay. I'm getting it away from all these rocks and stuff so that hopefully we can have an easy descent. Sorry, I'll look at the chat in a minute because I'm sure you've got lots of interesting things to ask, like why the fuck is the camera so shaky and why is it moving around so much. But I think basically what happens is this this thing has like this really good camera stabilization, but not when it's like broadcasting live. So you get kind of this shaky cam action while it's in the live broadcast. Yeah, I did all this rope management before. And then I had to like kind of undo a bunch of stuff. Let me try to fix this. More rope management. But eventually I'll figure this out enough to be able to talk about what I wanted to talk about, which was the Iran-Contra affair. Because I didn't learn about it in high school. And I always think that if I didn't learn something in high school, nobody did. Because my high school education was overall pretty good. But I think actually just my U.S. history education was bad. So there's that. I'm gonna go off protection here, which you shouldn't do, but I'm gonna do it anyways. This is gonna be the fastest way to get this untangled, I think. But I'm just on like flat ground, so if I can't stand on flat ground and not die, then, you know, what hope is there for me? Still doing the rope management thing. I feel like there should be some level of like cable management I could do with this, but everything I think is hard, so just have to bear with me for a minute. Sorry, this is the most uninteresting thing ever, but I can start talking about the Iran-Contra deal. the Iran-Contra affair. Let me see if Tang is here, because I feel like he would want to hear this. Tang, where are you? Jerk. Yeah, you do have a job. Sorry, I wasn't looking at chat. Tang's probably just like at dinner or something, or hanging out with Amy. Boreal just, I'm going off protection here, which you shouldn't do, so I just wanted to if this is it. Okay, Noodles. I was literally standing on flat ground. Alright, thank you, Noodles, for telling everybody what's going on, though. I appreciate it. Okay. And I'm back on protection now. Just a second. What is happening? Boop. Okay, so yeah, Noodles is the only one here. I guess people are busy in the evenings. It's a Thursday, going out and have fun. I'm just here, like, in this beautiful part of Denver. Really, no place I would rather be. Denver's really nice if you are not anywhere in downtown that you can't do fucking anything because it's a awful car-based city. But the train is good. It's just the regional rail. So anyways, I can talk about the Iran-Contra affair, which is to say that I kind of always confused it with the Iran hostage crisis that Argo is about, which I also didn't learn about in school, but at least I have seen Argo. So I like sort of knew what that was about, and I learned that Reagan like basically tanked the hostage deal to just like win the election. Rope. So that's fun. But the Iran-Contra affair, I mean, it's different. It's still, I think the reason maybe people mistake the two is that there are hostages involved. And basically, like, the U.S. tried to convince people that the hostages taken by Hezbollah in Lebanon was like a reason that we had to sell weapons to Iran to like get back. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Carter. I'm using a lav mic to plug directly into the cam, so that's why the audio is good. Anyways, so the Iran-Contra affair, it's like, yeah, the reason you might confuse the two is because, like, the Reagan administration did try to make it about a hostage exchange, but it really wasn't. Like, that hostage exchange was not really resolved until 92, like way after the Iran-Contra affair. And there's like the whole Contras part of that, like, name, the Iran-Contra affair, is something that like I didn't really understand. And the Contras are in Nicaragua, right? So like this clearly has nothing to do with like the hostage situation in Lebanon, or like clearly there's something going on here that I didn't learn about in high school. So in the Iran-Contra affair, like the Contras are these Nicaraguan rebels who are trying to oust the like communist the Sandinistas that like revolted and took power in Nicaragua. And they wanted to like do what other communist nations do, which is to nationalize these like American-owned utilities, which like America really doesn't want any of this to happen. Not because the Nicaraguan utilities are worth so much money to like Americans, but it's because like of the domino theory. And the domino theory is just that like if we find any one communist country successful, if we let any one communist country be successful, people will see like, oh, this can work. And the whole fight against communism is basically just saying that it can't work. And that's what I learned in as early as middle school. It's like, oh, what are the different ways to organize an economy? Well, you could have like a feudal system, or you could have a capitalist system, or you could have a communist system. And capitalism is the best because it like works. And communism maybe sounds good, like to each according to his means, like and like their desires and stuff. But I'm biffing the quote because I'm trying to think of the next thing I'm going to say. But basically, I learned the domino theory. Like, it was correct. Like, I learned the propaganda of the domino theory that, yeah, if there was any one country that was successful, if Cuba had been more successful, or the Soviet Union had been more successful, which they both already were very successful in many ways, but, like, obviously had serious problems with, like, autocracy and dissident, like, silencing and, you know, in case of Russia, murdering a bunch of people. But this domino theory ostensibly worked. So, like, even for small beans country like Nicaragua, it was, like, very important to U.S. hegemony in the world to stop this communist revolution. So the Sandinistas were in power and trying to nationalize utilities, and the Contras just basically, like, brutally murdered a bunch of civilians with weapons and training from the U.S. military. And the U.S. military, sorry, I'm, like, bouncing a little bit, which is not ideal. So, I'm bouncing a little bit here, so I'm going to refix the line to this, like, mussy hook, which is kind of nice that it's here. So I'm going to go off, like, I'm going to have both my hands off, so you need to have, like, a backup. So I have this knot backing me up here. Now I can't fall, because if I try to fall, it stops me, the knot stops me, yay. And I'm going to refix this line just so it's not totally in the way. So these are mussy hooks. I don't really know how well you can see them. I need a bit more slack. Oh, it's going hands-free. That's what people say when they, like, tie off the rope like this. So I'm going hands-free, and gonna refix this line just so I don't bounce around as much. And I don't know if I can make it to the bottom. It's right there with the rest of this rope, but we're gonna see and find out. And if not, I just go back up. I tie an alpine butterfly knot, which is a useful knot for stuff like this. You could tie a slip knot, but I just haven't had as much experience with slip knots, and, like, they obviously are built to slip. So I use alpine butterflies, which are knots that really don't slip. So that's an alpine butterfly. I'll step back so you can kind of see it a bit. And now I'll test that. Yeah. So the alpine butterfly is holding. It's here. And it's a knot that you use. It's called an alpine butterfly because it looks like a butterfly, and you use it in the alpine a lot because you have your rope that is already fixed to a bunch of people. Like, you have one person on one end of the rope, another person on the other end, and you don't want to ever undo those. So it's a knot that you can tie in the middle of a rope. So I was climbing down, so I have the middle of the rope here. So I can just tie this alpine butterfly. And the reason you don't really need it to be backed up, like, I'm on one hook instead of two, is because this isn't actually my anchor. This isn't, like, keeping me safe. My anchor at the top is the thing really keeping me safe. And this anchor here is just, like, helping so the rope doesn't rub. So it's not a life-saving part of the climb, so I don't really need to back it up. Can I see the chat? Hello? I don't know, the chat disappeared. I'll try to reload it. Well, the other thing I don't really know... Oh, it's not a GoPro. Yeah, I think it's going to frame drop a little bit. It's not a GoPro, it's called, like, an Insta360. It was just had a good deal at Costco, and I read good things about it, so I'm going to try it. But I'm going to need to figure out the stabilization can be a lot better otherwise. I don't know, I'm on Ethernet right now, so, yeah. Oh, lol, thanks, Corey. Yeah, I'm going to climb back up eventually. But anyway, so I'm climbing down right now, and I refix the rope, and now I'll start talking about the Iran-Contra deal again. So, the Iran-Contra deal, basically, like, the Sandinistas are being fought brutally by the Contras. Like, that's the other people in this issue. And so, Congress has allotted funds to the Contras in, like, you know, because that's the thing that we used to do. We used to, like, go through Congress to pay for wars. But this was a big change in that. So what ends up happening is that Congress, like, hears reports of the Sandinistas, or of the Contras, just being, like, fucking evil and just totally murdering in cold blood a bunch of civilians. Just, like, so evil. And so they amend their, like, previous bill to no longer allow any funding to the Contras. And ostensibly, like, we have won the, like, anti-war movement, trying to stop the U.S. from just, like, completely taking over every country it can just for, like, economic sake, like, has, you know, made enough noise in this point to end the incident. And so what Reagan does is two things. Reagan uses other funds for my Ethernet cable. We might have reached the end of the Ethernet. No, it's still going. He takes other funds from that were, like, not appropriated in the budget and uses them to fund the Contras. So, like, he's going around this rule that Congress said, which is, like, don't use these funds anymore for the Contras, and Reagan just does it anyways, basically. I'm going to tie off again and go hands-free here for a sec to see how much more of this Ethernet cable we have. Potentially not much. Alright, I'm going to climb back up and see. So Reagan gets around this by using these other funds. That's one thing he does. And the other thing he does is use Iran, which is how Iran gets, like, mentioned in this Iran-Contra deal in the first place. So the Iran-Contra deal, the Iran-Contra affair is that Reagan goes through Iranian arms deals. So, like, basically, Iran has been sanctioned now. It's after the Iranian Revolution. The Ayatollah is in charge. The U.S. sanctions Iran and tells the rest of the world that you absolutely cannot sell arms to Iran anymore. And Iran is, like, fighting a bunch of other wars in the region. There's, like, conflicts in Iraq and conflicts in Syria at the time. And so what ends up happening is that, like, this is this huge, humiliating thing when it comes out that the Iran-Contra affair is, like, a word you've heard of, because we were, like, total hypocrites. And everybody saw it as just, like, a complete asinine thing for Reagan to do. He sells arms to Iran and says it's for these hostages, but he sells arms to Iran after there's a sanction, and then Iran funnels those to the Contras in Nicaragua. And one of the interesting things about that is it turns out that the way they do this, sorry, just scratched the camera, is, there's a lens guard, it's fine. The way they actually do this is by talking to Iranian nationals who fled after the revolution in Iran and after the Ayatollah took power, and they came to California. And he used those connections in California to, like, along with the CIA, to funnel money through Iran and to establish points of communication that were these backdoor channels, because they couldn't have official communications because then the world would know. So these backdoor communications with, like, CIA operatives and Iranian nationals who are now in the US. And, like, the interesting thing about, like, why these Iranian nationals are in the US in the first place is because of the, like, goal for these Iranian nationals who like know a revolution is coming to siphon their money out to California so that it can't be taken by the revolution. So if you're a revolutionary and you come in and you seize all the like hoarded wealth from the oligarchs in your country, you are going to be in good footing. But if all that wealth is sitting in a bank in California, your revolution doesn't gain you the financial means that you thought it would. So all these people put their money in banks in California and then moved to California after the revolution, and these were the people who were just like continuing to get rich because they didn't have their like oligarchical powers anymore, but they took advantage of this Iran-Contra incident to like do this arms deals, get a bunch of money off the top of it, and continue their lucrative lives. Like really just follow the money in this case. They're not that allegiant to like returning to Iran and like overthrowing the Ayatollah. Like they're living their new billionaire lives in California and stay there. I mean, there's great Persian food in California because of this. And it's like all these people are just like completely funneling more money to the Contras at Reagan's behest through these backdoor deals. And it really shows how much of the US control of the international body is like due to this concept of like financial power that the financial power of the California banks allows Reagan to the financial power of the California banks gets these Iranian nationals into the U.S., which allows Reagan to do these backdoor deals to siphon money to the Contras, to undermine the Sandinistas and keep capitalism the hegemon throughout the world. And it was very successful, even though like there was like a bunch of court cases about it and people went to jail, and those people were ultimately pardoned by H.W. Bush. It's like ridiculous, who was potentially involved in the whole thing, but they get pardoned. So it doesn't really matter. But like this was a big deal at the time, and it was just entirely successful in making us think that like communism is bad. And also the story that I remembered incorrectly about it was that it was about like this hostage deal, and about stopping authoritarians. There's like these authoritarians in Iran that we need to stop, and there's authoritarians in Lebanon, there's authoritarians in Nicaragua, and all these things, and they like basically successfully convince you that everybody is just an authoritarian, and instead of the reality, which is that they were just trying to keep their economic interests in play. So I don't know. The last thing I'll say about that is like, meanwhile, Herbert Hoover, who was the president of the United States, was like took a direct financial hit from like communist revolution in China, which like obviously was good for the Chinese at the time, that their money and their mines that they took control of the money and the resources from those mines was no longer going to fucking Herbert Hoover. It was going to the Chinese people and allowed them to become like the global superpower that they are today. And I think it's sad that the Chinese government is basically like doing the same thing to the Nigerians with like all these cobalt and rare earth material reserves, that they're extracting the value from the country so the country stays poor. But ultimately the like what the Chinese government did in taking away and creating national resources and just getting the money out of American banks and back into the Chinese economy was very successful. And Herbert Hoover saw how successful it was, and like was one of the major architects in these like private deals that were going on between the CIA and all these things. Like he was, there's a direct line from Herbert Hoover's involvement in the California economy to he's from California, he's from San Francisco, to like what eventually happens in the Iran-Contra affair. And so it goes really far back, and you can just see like countries should just keep their money in their own countries. That's good for them. And like the whole history of this like exploitative regime is this story of like, countries try to just not be pillaged, and then we kill them, we go to war with them, like we literally murder them for it. And it's so absurd that you just like never learn any of this in school, or at least I didn't. or no, like not anything even close to it. Even though I should have learned about the Iran-Contra affair because it was like a major embarrassment for the U.S. politically and a major loss for the major loss for the government, and like people's heads rolled, and you just don't learn about that. And I feel like it would be nice to learn about a time where people in Congress who did very like corrupt things, like that their fucking heads rolled. Like I would like to know about that. I'm climbing. I'm putting together my setup to climb back up because I think my Ethernet cable is at its end. So that's that. I'll be heading up soon. I don't know. Who's watching? Did you know anything? I don't know if the... Oh, JSnip opens the... Oh, yeah. I mean, you're a little bit late to the party thing, but, like, I'm basically trying to explain how the Iran-Contra affair is, like, something that I didn't learn about at all and is, like, a really majorly interesting thing for us to learn about. And I think it teaches a lot of lessons about government corruption in the United States and like how the lengths that we were willing to go. The Contras were like so heinously evil that like Congress actually passed laws to stop funding them, and we still went around it. I mean, I think it's like so absurd. I feel like, I don't know. I'd be more than happy to tell you the whole fucking story again. The thing like makes my blood boil, but I won't here because theoretically anybody else who's here has already heard it. But yeah, that was the one thing I wanted to talk about. And the other thing I prepared was my stand-up special, which I finally did some. And by special I mean my Tight 5. I've been bothering Carter about it for years, and I like wrote it down because I was like, oh, this would be a fun thing to do while streaming, but I don't really know it that well yet, so I'll save it for another day. But that can be next time. You can really look forward to that. Yeah, in the meantime, I can talk about how fucking this rock climbing thing goes. I don't know if you can see my gear so well. Maybe I'll move the mic and show you for a second, or move the camera. It's spinning. Oh, yeah, maybe this is not the best idea. But here's my gear. This is maybe a crazy thing to do. But here's all my gear. You basically have 2 ascenders. And having 2 ascenders keeps you safe. I have a 3rd thing in right now because that's what I was using to climb before. Alright, I'm putting it back on. Sorry, everyone. And an ascender is basically just a thing that uses teeth to go up a rope. The teeth are directional, so you can slide up the rope but not down. It's really nice. I'm going to put this over my head. To keep it raised up. Cool. And now I'm going to go climbing. I think I maybe need to adjust the camera a little bit to actually climb. Sorry. So the angle's a little worse because like I'm actually doing something now. I'm going to bring this rope up. Because to climb, this is the thing I was doing yesterday. And failed at, or the other day, and put in my video that I failed at, and then I need to watch the like Instagram thing to figure it out. So I'm gonna coil this rope around my head like so. Kind of awkward with the camera. And then once I coil it, I can tie it off and it'll have enough weight to keep the rope under tension. Because to climb, you really want the rope to be under tension. It's like ideal. So I can take this off. And it's just a whole setup. Like, I have 2 pieces of protection in now, so I'm taking off my other piece of protection that I was using earlier. But you want to make sure that you don't take protection off until your other protection is on. It's a whole thing. So it's a bit time consuming. Everything in climbing, like, the more gear you have, the more time consuming it is. It's the reason Alex Honnold can, like, fucking climb the El Cap in 3 hours, while most people take 3 days. Like, literally, most people take 3 days. Because he doesn't have gear. So if you climb without gear, you really just can kind of move fast. But I have lots of gear because I'm by myself. Normally, tie this bite off. Yep, this is how you do it. Yeah, I'm remembering my Instagram thing. Can tie another little knot here. Okay, and now the rope is tensioned. I don't know if you can see, but basically this rope here is weighting the system. So it's all tensioned, which makes climbing, like, really easy and smooth. And it should be some easy climbing today. So yeah. I don't know. It's hard for me to read chat, apparently. Any thoughts on the Tufts kidnapping? Did anything lead to the Iran controversy, or just something you wanted to talk about? Oh, and any thoughts on the Tufts? Okay, so I'm just reading a book called Palo Alto. I recommend it, Tang. I think it's good. Like, you'd enjoy learning about your city. So, and in Palo Alto, like, it's my first time really learning about the kind of government of the United States and how it did these, like, private-public partnerships. That's, like, a really big part of the Palo Alto story. Sorry. I'm going to make this even more vertical so it doesn't hit the rocks, but it might look awful. So in these public-private partnerships, like, you get a lot of things where they just, like, the entire city of Palo Alto really came to life through military contracts that kind of won the U.S. World War II. There's, like, a neat story of how radio technology developed around Stanford allowed them to jam signals from the Nazis. And so the Nazis, like, didn't have as sophisticated signals jamming understanding as the researchers from Stanford did. And so with this kind of private-public partnership, the researchers at Stanford... What is going on here? The researchers at Stanford basically were able to pretend that they were signal jamming in one place, or signal jam early in one place. So the Nazis assumed that that's where the next attack from the... Oh. Come on, Ethernet cable. You're coming with me. Where the next attack would be coming from. They assumed that it would be in that spot where there was the signal jamming was happening. But in reality, it wasn't, and the Allies were able to attack a different location that was, like, completely defenseless. So stories like these, like, of how, like, so much money flowed into Palo Alto through that, and so much, not just money, but not just money, but really trust from the U.S. government was given to Palo Alto. That basically they were just giving carte blanche access to government funds and government projects, like, so much so that, like, many of these projects were just named, like, the Stanford Technology Company. You know, that was one of the companies. So you really learn about these public-private partnerships, that some of them were, like, out in the open and successful, but some of them were secretive. And so he tells the story about the more secretive one regarding the Iran-Contra affair, and how like these arms deals were going through Palo Alto, through the CIA, through these Iranian nationals, and how it completely enriched. It moved so much money into San Francisco. I mean, it moved like the nation of Iran's money into San Francisco so that these places could, keep their fortunes. So these people could keep their fortunes after they fled the revolution. And I don't know, so I was just reading that book, and I think about domino theory all the time. It's like probably the thing I think about most in, what we do and the work that we do to kind of like make people believe that socialism is possible. It's like, you just try to educate somebody that's like, I talk to my friends all the time and they're like, well, communism never worked. And it's like, you have to ask yourselves why it never worked. Like, and so I just think about it all the time, because when people are like, oh, we're talking about politics with friends eventually, and I'm like, oh, I'm like, they find out I'm like, have very left-leaning beliefs, and they're just like, oh, but this stuff never worked, and I'm like, no, it didn't. It did work. It was so successful that they had to fucking murder everybody who was good at it. It's like, it's the same thing as, like just like murdering your competition. If they weren't competition, you wouldn't have to murder them. So that's kind of why I got interested in this recently, because I just got to that chapter in the book, and it was kind of overlapping with some videos I was watching online about the history of the Sandinistas, or the history of the like communist revolutions in Chile that were also like really brutally attacked, and different communist revolutions that I've learned about in the past, like Cuba. So yes, all right. With all that, I got the Ethernet cable unstuck. It's just a lot of things to get stuck here now that I'm like carrying a billion things. I need to maybe see if there's another way to do this. So that's kind of my spiel for the day. I hope you learned something. I learned so much about this recently, and maybe next time I'll talk about like what the Sandinistas actually did, not just like who the Contras were and why they wanted to kill them. But I mean, it's a lot of just like nationalizing utilities. Fucking like, nobody wants anybody to, like, there are programs. It's not only about nationalizing. There are programs where like, if somebody wants to buy out the American companies, like America will put sanctions on them. Like, even just the attempt of buying out American companies is enough to, so that you can then own. It's like eminent domain. It's like owning your own resources, but you're still going to pay a fair price for them. You're not just going to like kick everybody out. Then like even that is enough to get US sanctions. I don't know. So that's that. Oh, the Tufts kidnapping, bad. I guess that's an interesting thing to talk about next time too. Is that like, how are First Amendment rights protected for non-citizens? And it's an interesting like case law, and obviously it's like you're just an absolute evil monster for making people think about this case law in the first place. But I think it's important to like be able to meet people at that talking point, because if they give you that talking point and you can't meet them with anything, then I think you're like, people feel like they have won the argument, when really I just want to talk about how like freaking fascistic it is, and the Gestapo-ness of it to just pick people off the street like that, when she's like clearly, not an agent for a foreign government trying to like undermine the US cause. Like, that would be a different case. Yeah, maybe you could arrest somebody for that in our normal society, but this is not that. And I think that like, if somebody feels like they can have a winning side of this argument, then I think that is like a real shame, because should be no winning side of this argument at all. And like, if you're like, oh, well, you made a good point about the Gestapo, but I made a good point about the First Amendment, then it's like, then it feels like they're even. But if you can just at least say something about like, no, these First Amendment rights do actually protect non-citizens in the US. There's case law about that, and I think that's like at least one part of this that maybe you might not immediately think of, but I found personally interesting. So that's that. I have a bunch of rope to manage, so Do you know if they actually like do any capitalist things that success? Vietnam's government is communist. I think mostly they're harangued by the IMF and don't do all that much to like be anti-capitalist on the world. Oh, Scott is asking what I want for dinner. And I don't know when you checked in, Tyler and Yuga, but I would love to talk more about the Iran-Contra affair with you anytime. You can come out climbing and we'll just talk about it. For dinner, I don't know, I guess anything hot. It's not cold out here, but it's like I'm gonna be cold in an hour when I'm like dealing with this in the sun. So, hello. Yeah. But I don't know, like, I think Vietnam, one of the things they do is just, like, exist as a single-party communist country. And then they also do a lot of things that Cuba does, which is, like, really favorable trade to other communist countries and really good solidarity. So if some other communist country is having that's why, like, China is an absolute beast of a partner for, like, all these countries. China is an amazing partner for Vietnam because basically, like, we have all these like rules about what can and can't be made in China, and so instead they just get China just puts plants in Vietnam and makes them there, and then they go through Vietnam to the United States. It's like a whole thing, but you know, Cuba obviously sends Cuba and China obviously send like vaccines to each other and doctors and things like that, and I think Vietnam participates in that too. Oh my God, Scott. Fine. If you make hot dogs, I'll eat them. But it would not be my first choice. Okay, I should get going because it's late and I have some rope cleanup to do. But this was really fun. Okay, love you guys. Bye.